For the first time since Israel was reborn as a nation in 1948, the Israeli government has formally declared war, and in doing so put Hamas on notice that those who participate in acts of terror will be aggressively pursued by the IDF until they pay the ultimate price for their crimes against humanity. Let me be clear, war is hell, and anyone who has studied it or had the unfortunate experience of living through it will testify to that reality. War should never be taken lightly. It should never be pursued hastily. It is true. Innocent people have died and unfortunately will continue to die in the following days and weeks. And every time an innocent Palestinian find themselves caught in the crosshairs of a war they did not ask for, the international community should respond by placing the blame squarely at the feet of those who deserve it. Hamas and their sympathizers who have left Israel no choice but to leverage their military in an attempt to secure their posterity. When groups of terrorists use hang gliders to fly into Jewish neighborhoods and murder in cold blood defenseless women and children, there is no other option but to fight. The author of Ecclesiastes is clear. There is a time for peace and there is a time for war. And if there has ever been a more appropriate time for war, it's now. And in Romans 13, Paul says that God ordains governing authorities to bear the sword and to execute wrath on those who practice evil. Let me be clear. Hamas and their affiliates are not freedom fighters. Hamas is our generation's version of the Nazi Party, and they are the very personification of that which is evil. Hamas is an extremist fundamentalist Islamic organization who in their very charter calls for the obliteration of Jews and the Jewish state. Hamas states that it is the individual duty of every Muslim to raise the banner of jihad until the Jewish people are exterminated from the face of the planet. No, Hamas does not just oppose Jews living in Israel. They are diametrically opposed to non-Muslims having the right to live peacefully in any nation, neighborhood, or community, and they will not rest until their dream of global domination is realized. Let me be clear, there is no negotiating with people who adopt the ideology of ethnic cleansing and genocidal extermination. You might be sitting here today and asking yourself the question, how could anyone have supported the Nazis in World War II? Just look at the rallies that took place on the University of Washington over the weekend and you will have your answer. An entire generation has been discipled by the demonic and now gleefully cheers the murder of infants and elderly in Jewish neighborhoods. Today, I am calling on the office of the president, the provost, and the board of regents at the UW to unilaterally denounce the disgusting celebration of terrorism that took place on their campus just a few short days ago. Our civic leaders should hang their heads in shame that this activity is happening on the state-funded campuses of our local universities. Today in Israel, millions of Jews and Muslims live in relative peace as neighbors who happily coexist in the same nation. When I take church tours to Israel, it is common to have Jewish tour guides leading Christian tour groups on buses with Muslim drivers. The war that is breaking out in Israel is not Jew versus Muslim. It is not Jew versus Palestinian. It is the government of Israel defending their right to exist against extremist terrorist groups who desire to rid the world of every single non-Muslim they encounter. Israel is a test. It is a test of our theology and a test of our humanity. It is not accidental that together Israel and Jerusalem are mentioned no less than 3,000 times between the Old and the New Testament. It is not accidental that in Romans 11, Paul says Israel's rejection is not total and it is not final, for the branch that was broken off will be engrafted again. And I am not sure how it's all going to happen, but I am utterly convinced that prior to the return of Christ, we will see the consolation and reconciliation of the Jewish people. But Israel is not just a test of our theology, it is a test of our humanity. Why is it that in every generation, a world superpower has arisen to exterminate the Jewish people? From the Egyptians to the Babylonians, from the Assyrians to the Persians, from the Romans to the Nazis, and now Israel finds themselves yet again in an existential battle for their very survival. Maybe you're here today and you don't have some grandiose theological reason to support Israel. That's okay. But at a bare minimum, could you recognize the strategic and political importance of supporting America's strongest ally in the Middle East? In closing, I wanted to remind you of a song written by King David 3,000 years ago. A song that was sung by the Jewish people as they would travel into Jerusalem to celebrate the holy feasts. A song that now soldiers sing as they kiss their wives and hug their children goodbye, some for the final time, as they head out to fight yet again a battle for their right to exist. Psalms 121. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, for whence my help comes from. My help comes from the Lord. He is the maker of heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who watches over Israel shall neither slumber nor will he sleep. For the Lord is your keeper. The Lord is the shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. So we say, let God arise, let his enemies be scattered, and may God take what the enemy intended for evil and use it for our good.